I think having a deeper understanding of architectural intent allows you to create better outcomes because, if you're coming from a perspective of understanding rather than interpreting, then you're far better off. It's seeing opportunities that are aligned with the architectural intent or the design intent and acting on those in a purposeful way or a positive way where there's not any other intention other than to get a better outcome for the client.
Welcome to the Site to Studio podcast.
Thank you, Charlie.
Today we're joined by Ben Shorter.
Correct.
Who's not short at all from B.F.C Built.
That's right. Hello.
Inner city architectural builders.
Yep. That's right.
Could you please introduce yourself and let us know a little bit about what you do?
Yep. We inner city architectural builders is pretty much on the money. We are a team of 9, including myself. I've been operating since 2017 as B.F.C Built. I don't know. What else?
How did you get into the into the industry? Let's go personal first. Where'd you grow up?
I was born in WA, in Perth. So, we moved to Melbourne in I think it was about 2002. So I was just a little kid, or like what was I? 13, I think. So moved to Melbourne with the family when I was a kid. Spent most of my life in Melbourne. And
whereabouts you moved to?
We lived around sort of Ormond, McKinnon
around here
area. Ish. Yeah.
Or compared to the West.
Totally. Not too far. Yeah. I went to McKinnon High, graduated there.
Congratulations on your graduation.
Thank you. I was a bit of a rat bag at school, so I don't know how much benefit it was in the end, but I think in high school had some academic, aspirations, but wasn't really sure what I wanted to do, as are a lot of kids at that age, I think. And then following high school, worked with my dad, who was a glazier, just in a factory doing, full-time work. Loved earning a full-time wage, and all my aspirations of university pretty quickly dissipated after making a full-time wage. But also working with my hands, I kind of got a lot of satisfaction from that, even if it was at that sort of factory level. It kind of gave me enough to want to pursue something in that field. And carpentry, initially I kind of thought I wanted to be an electrician just because maybe,
You sound embarrassed.
Yes.
Yes.
I can't answer that without offending, too many people, but it's a vastly different trade, and I'm very grateful for the path that I chose, is what I'd say.
Whoa, diplomatic.
Yeah. So, but anyway, landed on carpentry. And it's funny thinking back then, as a 19-year-old, I remember there was an ad in the paper, carpenter wanted. And I remember my dad drove me to meet with this bloke and, rolled up, "G'day, mate, how you going?" Shaking the hand. I have no idea about, carpentry or being a carpenter really. And basically from there, started my apprenticeship and worked for a few different people throughout the course of my apprenticeship. Was getting underpaid by one of my bosses for a pretty long time. It was sort of developing the skill set and was enjoying myself. And I think towards the end of my time, knew that, going down my own path was where I wanted to go with it, and started subcontracting, out of my apprenticeship. Was offered some contract work as an apprentice through a guy I was working with. And then from there, just sort of always within the residential space, building houses, extensions, new homes, etc. And then I sort of done a very varied mix of stuff as well. So initially was doing a little bit more volume type stuff, and then actively pursued getting into the architectural sort of space because that's kind of where, I've always enjoyed doing more challenging work.
Right.
So, yeah.
Why? What influenced your decision to not continue doing glazing work?
It was really just a filler job post high school. And yeah, I think, it was never really a long-term goal. It was more just of a filler thing. So just to decide really what I wanted to do, whether it was going to uni, kind of wanted to be a physio potentially. Like I'm pretty into sport and thought that could be an enjoyable field and still do. But yeah, landed on being carpenter and through, B.F.C built as it is now. That's been the last sort of 6 years. So, it's sort of 15, 16 years that I've been in the industry for, but doing it under this banner for that time.
What does B.F.C mean?
So it's nothing too significant or philosophical. It was when I was sort of renaming the business, Barefoot Construction was the name of my sole trader business when I was a chippy. And so the initials BFC came about, liked having the word built in it. And yeah, it was down to a few different options, but every man and his dog in Australia has a business, it seems, when you try and name the company. And so, landed on BFC built, but Barefoot Construction was the, original name for my business. So, and that sort of had loose ties with sustainable building and, aligning with some of those principles that I still, hold pretty, they're important to me, basically.
You talk about actively looking to get into architectural building. What did that journey look like for you? Getting into architectural.
Yeah, so I was living in Brunswick at the time, and share house vibes, kind of mid-20s, early 20s, and was working as a carpenter doing more volume stuff. And there was a company doing an extension in Fitzroy North that I used to drive past all the time. They had a beautiful hoarding, and they were doing massive extension to this beautiful period home and lots of steel and lots of complex angles. And I virtually just saw their hoarding and looked their company up and went, I'm going to just give them a call. And pretty much spoke to the director and just said, look, this is my experience. Want to get into the space. How you placed for carpenters at the moment? And he said, we're actually looking. So let's have a chat. We had a coffee at a little cafe in Fitzroy North, and I think I started a week or two later. So, and I spent about, the company's called Blue 7, by the way, and they do some really nice work, and that my time with them kind of shaped me. Like I learned a lot working there, and you're always continually on the journey, but I think that really helped me to establish, my desire to kind of be in this space. So I worked with them for probably like 3 or 4 years, and they're based over in South Melbourne, do a lot of work in Albert Park, Middle Park, very similar stuff.
Help us define architectural building. What does it mean to you?
Well, it's an interesting question.
And distill it. Be concise.
Yeah.
What does it mean?
Blue 7, well, it means building homes that are designed by an architect.
Oops. Bad question.
But it's an interesting question because that company I was working for, it was architectural building, but a lot of it was sort of D&C type work. So Mark, who was the director, he didn't have he was an electrician, but didn't have a sort of trade, like building background as such. And we were building these kind of architectural design houses, but they weren't really for architects, which was, it was a bit of a strange sort of model, but we might have to edit that out. But I think
no English.
But I mean, getting back to your question, what defines an architecturally designed?
That's not a negative thing to say. It was just that model where the architects weren't the contract admins on the job.
I think in working in that company though, and that was about the time where Insta started really popping off, and you could sort of see, you know, a lot of architects doing a lot of work, and it's a flourishing, you know, industry in Melbourne. And that was when, you know, I started looking at some of these architects and I was like, geez, I love the you know, the work these guys are doing. I remember emailing Austin Maynard when I was like 26, just being like, you know, I didn't even have my license at the time. And I was just like, oh, if you ever need, you know, building work done, hit me up. And I don't think Andrew Maynard was responding to my email. But anyway, you know, now we're talking to him. So it all comes around in, you know, back in the wash. But yeah, I think working in that field, observing what was going on, there was definitely still, you know, a space, you know, to move into, and there still is. I think, you know, plenty of architects, they're always looking for good builders and people that care and have passion and, you know, enjoy what they do and do a good job.
Looking at your, you know, like your website and your, you know, like your socials and stuff.
Yeah.
You think a lot about like sustainability, just, you know, a lot of the ESG stuff, for example. How do you reconcile those values that you have with how inherently inefficient architectural building is?
Yeah, for sure. I think...
Isn't it like an interesting...
It is a little bit of a conflict of interest for me personally at times, in that, you know, everyone... It's a bit of a buzzword, right? And I've heard you speak about this before, but, you know, it is though. It is. People say, oh, you know, I'm passionate about sustainability. And it's a very broad, sweeping statement that, you know, everyone says because it sounds good. But there are a lot of things that you can do within your, you know, even like it needs to start at the very start with the designer, obviously, but there's a lot we can do to influence, you know, the thermal efficiency of a building and making sure it performs to its utmost, capacity.
No, I certainly don't. I don't question
from your question there.
No, I don't question the commercial, you know, motivations or anything, and nor do I make any value judgment on the values or the, you know, the morality behind it. It's not that deep, but I just find that building an architectural home is so. The what you get for the resources can be quite inefficient. It can be. So I don't know, maybe some of the passive house stuff might tackle that. Some of the like the very pragmatic passive house, you know, might counter that. But a lot of what we do is just expensive shit.
Yeah, totally. I mean, but it really, again, the term architecturally designed, it is so broad because it's, you know, it's looking at the materials that go into a building. Embodied energy is a big part of, you know, sustainability and how much resources literally go into building a house. So, you know, embodied energy is a quantified measure of how much resources go into a certain material and how long it takes within its lifespan to actually pay back that value. So I mean, it really is dependent on how much steel they're using, and it's material selection, and it's being conscious from the designer of that. And you know, obviously a lot of architectural buildings are just packed with concrete and steel, and they're not very sustainable building materials. So, you know, I try my best to have a say with, you know, where we can try and make ways to make things as efficient as possible. But often it's up to the designer, and my pursuit to build complex structures sometimes clashes with my, you know, personal interests of trying to leave as little footprint as possible. But
bit of a tangent, but you know how people say, oh, they don't build them like they used to and whatnot. I've heard recently that there's this idea, I don't know the exact term, but I think it's like survivorship bias or something, where you think the old houses are built better because only the good ones are left. So like all the shit ones are gone.
That's
now.
a good point.
They're all gone. Do you you do, period homes and extensions, renovations, Did they build, obviously, right, it was all hardwood, but did they build it better? Or
I think they did. It's sort of a cyclical thing. So I think, from probably 1880 to 1910, 1920, they actually did build them pretty beautifully.
They had money.
Well, yeah, I think it was more maybe a lack of availability of materials meant that they had to really hone in their craft with using the same stuff. So, bricks, obviously all your inner city construction, terrace house sort of stuff, brick party walls, bluestone footings, hardwood subfloors, bluestone chimney, footings. Some of them are pretty solid. But look, they are, it's sorry, what I was trying to say was that, it goes in cycles. And I think the availability of new materials throughout time has greatly affected how buildings perform. So, there's really nice examples of good homes through like the 20s, 30s, 40s, even, post-war 50s, 60s. But I think as soon as the 70s hit, when you start getting these thin profile aluminium windows, and they were like, oh, what is this great new revolutionary material that's lightweight and it's so thin? Let's just rip let's rip everything out and just replace it.
No more timber.
No more timber. And, things like cement sheet and, materials that are becoming available at the time, and they didn't really know how to use them very effectively. There are a lot of the houses that you see, falling apart.
Do you feel like that it's hard for just your everyday Australian to be able to, purchase or build a house that's just a well-constructed home?
Kind of, yeah. I think, there's always been that struggle of just the NCC trying to keep up with what's deemed to be, the standard.
Non-compliant.
Yeah.
You sent that guy on Instagram? The guy that does building inspections.
Yeah. I really enjoy those, actually. He's snuck his way into the algorithm for me recently, and it's very good. Yeah. He's got the little buzzer thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, look, I don't know. It is. You'd like to think that all the practices I've got in place with, an inspector, like building surveyors having stage-based inspections, should try and mitigate that, but there's still a lot of dodginess that goes on with private surveyors. And
I mean, speaking of dodginess and all that's in place to help achieve a better outcome at scale, is there too much red tape involved in building? Is it too over-regulated? Is it too much of a...
It's hard because I think it's over-regulated because they're catering to the minority of really bad builders. And then all the good builders have to go through the same rigmarole. But yeah, they're making it really hard. And I think it really is dependent on the project team as well, who the building surveyor is, and what they make you do to, get through the hoops. But yeah, it can be very,
how do you fix
very
it?
Complex.
How do you make the incentives and the regulations correct? Like what's something that you think they can change that will provide on net much better outcomes?
I'm not sure, to be honest, Charlie, because at the end of the day, you kind of have to be catering to that worst case scenario, because if you let those guys, get away with certain things, then it really just means a poor outcome for the client.
It'll hurt the consumer and by extension hurt the industry too much.
Yeah, but look, I don't know what the answer is. I think it's a pretty complex question, in terms of building surveyor and regulation and the law and all the things that they have to do to try and cover themselves now is sometimes feels like you're banging your head against the wall.
Do you think it makes you want to bang your head against the wall? Yes. Does it also dilute the passion or whatever passion there is left in the trade and the business?
Yeah, absolutely. I think
sometimes you just want to build.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, as I said, I think it comes back to the project team that you can assemble and work with, knowing that, you know, you've got a good engineer, you've got a good building surveyor, someone that knows and trusts your work, and they can make a judgment call on, you know, how this building's constructed and how it's going to perform. So I don't know about, diluting passion, but performance solutions are a whole other conversation, and it seems like certain building surveyors, you know, you want to make one very minor change and they want to charge for a building permit amendment. They want a performance solution prepared by a third-party consultant, which costs thousands of dollars, and you just end up, it's just all this money floating around in thin air, and all it is
right, and
liability.
You've spent, and you justify it because you say, if we don't do this, we're going to have to spend 20 grand on these 120-minute windows as opposed to 5 grand on these 60-minute windows.
Yeah, I mean, it's...
But why do we need the 120-minute windows in the first place?
We had I'll give you an example, right? So we had a project where they specified a 2,000 litre water tank go in the ground, and it was a very small site in Richmond. We had these, I think they're about 1.7 metre wide courtyards, and we couldn't fit it was like a sort of like an H shape floor plan with 2 central courtyards sort of sliced through the middle. And the plans called for a 2,000 litre water tank. We physically could not fit a 2,000 litre water tank within the courtyard. So we could only use a 1,500 litre water tank. And at the end of the project, the building surveyor said to us, you've used a 1,500 litre, not a 2,000 litre. We said, yes, you can't fit a 2,000 litre within the courtyard. You know, that's all we could do, unfortunately. And yeah, in that circumstance, they require an amendment to the building permit, a performance solution, which is a document, a cut and paste document that's provided by a third party consultant that costs anywhere between $3,000 and $5,000 just to put a signature on the paper and sign it. So in the end, it costs us about $5,000 just to, you know, get the water tank, just for that to get across the line. And it just seems like, I don't know, it just does seem unfair.
It's like, what are we doing here?
Yeah, well, that dilutes my cash flow. And that dilutes the passion.
That's very cheeky of you. Yeah. What is diluting the passion that people have in the trade then? Well, first, I've just made an assumption. You've been in the industry longer than me. You've been a carpenter for many years.
Yeah.
Do people still take pride in their work?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, for sure. I think, I mean, I'm very passionate about what we do, and, you know, all of our contractors are, most of them anyway, are pretty passionate. I think that's one thing that, you know, working within this space, doing the work we do,
it makes it easier, doesn't it?
Yeah, for sure. I think you're far more likely to encounter people that are good at what they do. They're here doing this stuff because they love it. It's not easy, you know. It's not necessarily the highest paid, you know, thing to get into. Like, a lot of people could just step straight onto a commercial site and be getting paid twice the amount, or, you know, 30% more or whatever. So, no, the passion's still there. I think when can sometimes be a very big disconnect between, I suppose, what you're doing and what the interpretation of what you're doing is, be that from architects or clients. You know, I've got a few mates who are architects who are doing projects to their own house, doing extensions and renovations, and they've kind of said to me, like, Ben, I finally understand, you know, like, what's involved in actually building and, you know, having to do all of these things. Like, it's one thing to specify it on paper, but then you actually go and do it yourself, and there's just so many decisions that need to be made.
Why isn't there more of an incentive for architects to specify things that is to be more considered in their approach? I mean, architects love to say that
it's all about how it looks, you know.
I mean, they say that they're very considered, which they are, because they're considering how it looks and how it performs and how the customer's going to live in the space.
Yeah,
which are very important things. do there need to be more incentives for them to be considering how it's going to get built?
Yeah, I think one idea that's been floated is, architects spending a small amount of time doing some site-based training. So as a part of their degree, just to inform, how things go together. Like some of the better architects I know have actually either, been in trades or have definitely dabbled in, making things themselves. So they have some understanding of how things go together. Because I think sometimes when it gets into that really nitty gritty sort of defect type conversation and you've bent over backwards to try and, create something beautiful and very complex, there needs to be an understanding of how you arrived at that sort of outcome, which helps to, make an assessment on, I suppose. But I think that would, them doing some site-based training or a little bit of practical stuff would be helpful at times. But that said, we've got fantastic relationships with, a lot of the architects we work with. So certainly not saying get out there and get on site, but yeah.
I personally think the more efficient approach isn't necessarily for them to go out and get site experience, but just for there to be a deeper collaboration between the builder and the architect. Mm-hmm. The idea that an architect should be trained, let's say in like in the Renaissance era of being a master builder, I don't think that is feasible in today's economy.
No,
but a more efficient outcome with better aligned incentives. Tagline from the last episode, aligned incentives.
Aligned incentives
is for them to just collaborate on a deeper level with the builder, and the aligned incentive. A big part of that is you're delivering more value to the customer in the end.
Yeah, well, that's a big part of what we do, though, and it's on varying capacities with certain architects. But I think when you do get the best outcome is when you're on site, you get a hand sketch detail. We come up with some details, and you end up with a really beautiful outcome. We've been fortunate to do that on quite a lot of projects where we're either engaged very early within the project and have some design input around, constructability of certain elements, or we're also coming to the table with ideas during the process to say, here's an opportunity to do something that we think would be really nice. Let's do it, basically. But so, I think that exists. And I suppose that comes down to the engagement of the architect with the builder, when it happens, how it happens. Are they coming to them with like a fully fledged set of documents and there's just no wriggle room at all? Or are you coming to us early and saying, here's a DD set of drawings, let's have a chat about what do you think? Is this approach, is this achievable for this budget? How can we do it? What are your thoughts? That sort of thing.
It can be just all too hard though sometimes because the architect's under a lot of pressure to get something out, to get it done, a big pipeline of other work. The bandwidth often just isn't there to consider that detail.
Yeah.
Which is a problem. I don't have the solution, but it's a problem.
Yeah.
Or it can be a problem.
Oh, for sure. And I think the other thing is there has to be a really high level of trust with, collaborating on that level, because I think a lot of architects feel like if they don't detail things, really finely, that it won't get done exactly how they want. And in a lot of cases, that's true. And even when they do detail it very accurately, some builders will just misinterpret it or not even see it and just do whatever. But that's where a collaborative approach, does work really well, and you can get a much better outcome.
How do you think about, what are you thinking about in your dealings with your customer?
It's about the experience. It's not so much about, the product at the end of the driveway. It's more about the experience of the people and this is the customer and, the client and the architect, but it's the experience that everyone has during the process. And, I think there's plenty of builders out there that are going to build you a really beautiful home. It's more about the experience that you have during that process that I think is what's memorable. So yeah, it's trying to deliver a beautiful product, but have an enjoyable time at the same time. And we get good feedback from clients and architects. We've got a really awesome team, and everyone's pretty personable. Have a nice chat on site. We're obviously passionate and very serious about what we're doing, but it doesn't stop you from having a laugh and enjoying yourself along the way.
Yeah. And what are the customers? What do they really appreciate? I guess what are they looking for? What part of the experience perhaps gives them a feeling that this isn't what I expected? Or
yeah, it's a good question. I mean, I think it's just that level of personability, and I mean, you can talk about quality and all that sort of thing, and I think that's very important for a lot of people, but just having more of a personal touch during the process where you can deal. I mean, the company's at a size where I'm still heavily involved in a lot of our projects and attending every site meeting and that sort of thing. So just having that level of personal influence on what's going on, I think helps. How
is your team structured?
Yep. So we've got myself and a project manager, and then I've got 3 site managers, carpenters, and apprentices. So yeah. So basically, we generally do 3 projects at a time. I'll look after 1. Our other PM, Simon, looks after 2. And then I've got site manager on each site, dedicated for the whole project. And then we have carpenters that, sort of jump between. I usually like to keep them on the same site for pretty much the whole time there.
How important is it having carpenters on a job?
It is, very important. And I think it's one thing that is somewhat unique to our company that I've learned, just from speaking to other guys and whatnot. Like, it's sort of always the way that I've worked, and I think it's incredibly important. Yeah. And we, I guess the way we do things in terms of team meetings and process of working is a little bit unique as well.
What do you guys think about in terms of building your processes? Because it's hard to build processes for architectural building. Yeah.
So I guess just in terms of our company structure and what we do, so we have 3 team meetings a week, Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and that's site specific. The one on Friday we do with everyone together, but the Monday, Wednesday is site specific, and it's all about talking about what are our aims for the day, how we're going to achieve it. Like, so what's the process? And literally tell me how. Let's talk about it. When do we want to try and get it done by? And then on a Friday, we usually do a bit of reflection. So what's gone well? What hasn't gone so well? What have we learned from it? How can we do it differently next time? And we've been doing this for a few years now, and it's really good. So yeah, it just gives, it really gives everyone an opportunity to sort of have input in the company and the way it runs, down from, apprentices to project manager, and just gives people a space to kind of talk about, if people aren't confident in certain things, let's have a chat about it. It's just an open space for conversation, basically. And I think because there are so many complexities within architectural building, lots of things that can go wrong. Often a very quick conversation can, avoid a pretty simple mistake happening. So, yeah, I've found that to be really beneficial. Sometimes it feels like a grind, when people are busy and there's, 15 people on site, you really need to kind of carve out that time to actually do it. But that's one thing we sort of hang our hat on, and I think it's just creates a really, good environment for conversation. And yeah.
What are some of the things that you're really cognizant of as you're running a project? Like, what are those key things that you guys are making sure that you get right, and you think what's that 80-20? What's part of that 20 that really makes all the difference?
I think it's just constant check-in. It's not so much one thing or another. It's just process on process, intricately laid on top of one another, with consistency applied throughout the whole job. So there's really not, I could say time management or quality or budget, but I think it's all of those things. And as I say, it's more of a consistent approach with just really trying to stay on top of everything. And through that process, you can sort of go, what didn't go well? Oh, well, the taps were roughed in at the wrong height. Well, why were they roughed in at the wrong height?
Played off. Why were they roughed in at the wrong height?
Or there was a plan update. Maybe when, plans weren't updated, we had an outdated set of drawings, or the contractor rocked up. There's obviously a host of different reasons, but through having that constant reflection and check-in, it just allows you to go, oh, that's right. Oh, let's, do it a bit differently next time.
And what's the process for implementing those learnings?
Well, sometimes it can be a physical thing, a document or a checklist or something like that. Other times it's simply just, being mindful, noticing. Because that's the other thing. It's kind of hard for apprentices working with architectural builders because you're not really doing anything en masse. So they don't get, when I was an apprentice, I knocked out, 40 frames at a retirement village, one after the other over the course of like 6 months. Whereas, some of our team might only do 1 or 2 frames in a year. So it's very hard to impart that real methodical way of thinking, which is essential, I think, with a lot of carpentry tasks. It needs to be done there's many ways you can do things, but I think there's certain things that need to be done in a very particular way. So by having these conversations, it allows you to talk about those things a little bit, and it's not just, go do it. It's let's have a chat about it. We can share knowledge. Obviously, everyone's got varied levels of experience and stuff like that. So, yeah.
I understand what you're saying, because with the type of cabinet making that we do, we just don't have that many boxes to knock up.
Yeah. Yeah.
So the apprentices or the labourers that come in and are learning the trade, it is hard for them to get into a groove.
Yeah.
Because one week, the whole week, we're doing solid timber.
Yeah.
Next week, we're only knocking up for 2 days or something, or there's just or you're out installing. So I would say that there is merit in just spending your first 6 months knocking up 4,000 boxes.
Yeah, absolutely.
There really is merit in that.
Absolutely.
Especially if you're doing it in the right way, like you said, because there is a right way to do things, and then build upon your skills from there.
Yeah.
But I guess, unlike perhaps other countries with bigger industry, we're made up of so many small businesses, and there isn't that sort of training pathway or just that opportunity to experience, say, in a very structured and staged approach, experience an education process, say, as a tradesman.
Yeah.
It's interesting.
Yeah, it is interesting. I mean, I think, I feel like from what I've heard, the standard of Australia's apprentices are relatively high. But I don't know, do you not agree with that, or?
I don't know. I can't comment. I can't comment because, I guess I'm not a tradesman, and also I don't know what the standard is in other countries.
Yeah.
I can't imagine, and this is something I'd love to discuss with you in detail, but I can't imagine the attitude of our apprentices on net being better or topping the world in any way.
Yeah, I don't know. It's an interesting.
I'm not saying it's their fault.
Yeah,
but it seems to be hard. Why is it so hard to be motivated? As say, just take your classic archetypal, your classic archetype of a young tradesman.
Yeah, yeah.
Why is that young man so different to what they were 20 years ago? Ooh. Or are they different?
TikTok, drugs.
When
the
you
internet,
talk about
it's very complex.
When you get into the juicy stuff, you got to get close to the mic.
Yes. Okay. Yeah. All right.
So you're saying it's hard to those things suck motivation away from?
Oh, I don't know. Mind? I mean, it's such a difficult. That is such a difficult question. I'm not sure. I mean, it's funny because all of our apprentices have, our apprentices we've got have all been pretty mature age and have also come from pretty interesting backgrounds. So currently we've got Nick, who used to be a lawyer and is now a second or third year apprentice carpenter. We had...
I only took one ayahuasca for him to become a carpenter.
That's funny. That's pretty on point.
I know him.
Yeah. You know?
I don't, but I know him because I can feel his energy through you.
His chakras. Yeah. No, that's good. No, he's amazing. But we had Harry, who was a lawyer. I beg your pardon, lawyer. Sorry. Harry was an architect and studied as an architect, pivoted over to carpentry. Who else do we have? There's been a few others over the journey, but it's, I don't know. We don't have your classic uninspired, unemployed, whatever they're called, 18-year-old can of mother sort of first thing in the morning, like turbo kind of vibe. That's not quite us. But
do you sometimes look at it like an apprentice and I must admit I'm indulging myself in this kind of talk, but do you ever look at an apprentice and just think, fuck, I wish you'd just get up and fucking go and just fucking just knock this shit over. Do you know what I mean? Like just work, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Do you ever get that feeling?
Not with our guys. Not with our guys. Our guys are awesome. And yeah, I don't know. It's
okay. We're back from the edit where he told us the truth.
Yeah, exactly. Nah, not from our guys. I think the challenging part is one of the most challenging things that they face genuinely is knowing how long something should take. Especially in the architectural space, because they're like, oh, this needs to be perfect.
Because the truth is you don't even know how long it's meant to take.
No, I know. But
he knows.
It's very hard and that gets back to what we were talking about before and doing things en masse. When you've not done it before, if you've been knocking up frames constantly for a year or two, you know how long it should take. You know how long it should take to build a wall. You know how long it should take to stand, X amount of walls. But if you've never done it, then you don't know. So I think that's the big challenge. For us, the attitude of our team and for many years has been fantastic. And it's a really...
Talk about the industry at large though, because you're in the top percentile.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I mean, there's lots,
Do you think being a carpenter, let's say, being a young carpenter, do you think that carries more social value now or it had more social value 20 years ago?
As in, like, when you say social value, what do you mean by that?
Status.
I think it does. Yeah. I think
more now.
I think now. Yeah. Well, it's interesting. I feel like tradies, the perception.
I didn't mean social value in the hipster way, like that you think about it. No. I get it now. I understand now.
No, I'm talking about respect, like respected as a professionalism,
reputation.
Yeah, that's what I'm getting at, and I think that narrative has changed a lot recently. Where people go, Oh, okay. I don't actually have to be like a V drinking, pie eating, bogan. I can actually be who I am. I can be myself.
I can be an enlightened carpenter.
You can be a woke carpenter.
There's a few of them now. There's a lot of them.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, yeah, I don't know. It's funny. I'm not sure about like respect and how it's sort of perceived. I guess there's probably quite a lot more.
The reason I ask that is because that is a big driver for why people choose.
Yeah, for sure.
And it's a big driver, a big indicator of fulfillment.
Yeah.
I'm not a social scientist, but...
Yeah. No, I don't know. I mean, there's a big factor is people going to uni and having these huge hextets, and looking at that and going, oh, well, maybe an academic path isn't the best thing for me. Like when I can go and, do year 12, I think that's definitely got value. But you can go into a trade and it can be a very diverse field, particularly in carpentry. Like there's a lot you can do. You can go into project management, you can do estimating, you can do, maintenance or property, or there's lots of different sort of paths you can take. So yeah, I think the perception of tradies is definitely shifting a little bit, but we're in a bit of a bubble too. So I don't know.
So why don't the quote unquote kids want to put in 8 years work and become start as a carpenter? Do your 4 years, do your 3 years qualified.
I think instant
gratification.
Yeah, and I think social media and the way we use devices probably has some part to play in that. Like it is such a fast society that people can get what they want really quickly. But
it's almost like that sort of mentality. Not by their own choice, but that sort of mentality is almost like a hamster wheel thing where you're running fast, but you're just staying in the same spot the whole time.
Yeah.
You may as well be walking slow, but walking forward and getting somewhere.
For sure.
But it's hard. It's easy for me to sit here and make value judgments and stand on some moral high ground and say that. But it's hard. I mean, are you addicted to your phone?
Yeah, a little bit. Yeah,
I am.
Yeah. Oh, for sure. Yeah. I mean, it's that endorphin hit of whatever you're doing, but that's it. It's
like eating instant noodles. It makes you feel good straight away.
Totally. But how much of that and the way we consume technology and devices plays into the general mindset and mentality of like the younger working force today? Questions we can't answer, but certainly, it's all kind of wrapped into the same conversation, I reckon.
Do you think it's going to get to a point where where it will swing because just purely from the supply and demand dynamics of there not being enough tradesmen? Not even at the high level, just not enough.
As in it'll be really sort
of... It'll be cool again.
Yeah.
Not that it's not cool now, but it'll be like, right, this is some serious shit.
I think... Yeah, not sure. I think it is what you make it because it is such a diverse spread of individuals, that are doing this stuff. So it's, I think it's very subjective. It's dependent on, what you're actually doing and how you're doing it. But, is there going to be more supply, less demand, opposite? I don't really know.
What's been on your mind lately? Apart from the Site to Studio podcast.
Well, I mean, personally, I'm doing an extension to my own home, and we're also expecting our first baby in November. So
wow, congratulations!
Thanks, man.
That is the greatest blessing.
Yeah, it is absolutely. So yeah, we're pretty thrilled about that, and obviously managing, a business whilst doing an extension, living in the home with your pregnant wife is...
This is your first child?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. So personally, that's been on my mind a bit lately, but it's all, super enjoyable and we're very excited. In a business sense, what's been in my mind lately, I guess... with rising interest rates and the cost of living, inflation is continually going up. I guess there has been a bit of talk about, things quietening down a little bit and, how that's all sort of going to sit. And I think I have seen a little bit of a downturn in just inquiries generally. But yeah, it doesn't take a huge amount of work for us to be busy for a year or two. But a little bit of that, but yeah, mostly just trying to get my house built.
As you're building your house,
yep,
are there things, did you go into it and think, okay, I know exactly what I want? Or were there these things that were like, okay, that thing we did on that job, perfect, we're going to do that?
I've definitely been collating ideas over the years, and I think it's actually, I'm glad you asked that question because it sort of looped me back to, you know, the whole efficiency and collaboration throughout the build. And I've noticed that having a more fluid approach with that is so efficient. You know, being able to move things 50 mil or 100 mil or not having to sort of seek confirmation from an architect and a client for every decision that you make can really save a lot of time.
You don't scratch a quick RFI on the wall for yourself?
Oh, definitely. There's a lot of that. There's a lot of that. But, you know, it's scratched on the wall and it's ticked off and approved in about, 3 minutes. So it's been an interesting process actually doing that and having the flexibility to actually modify a couple of things to suit site conditions or, we're very lucky. My sister-in-law and brother-in-law are both architects, helped with the...
Which one's better?
With the drawings. No comment. But we were very lucky in that sense, had a lot of help with the design, but we had a very bare bones, set of drawings that we're working from. And a lot of the details are just in my head, basically. And
did you do... Given the choice, do you always lean towards more simple, pragmatic, utilitarian, or do you lean towards liking the luxury details?
In terms of like an architectural style?
Your house.
More utilitarian, yeah.
Why is that? I like the... For me, I'm almost desensitized to all this fancy shit. Like, it doesn't do anything for me.
Look, I do... Yeah, it's an interesting one. I'm more drawn to the honest materiality, exposed structure. There's some elegant materials that are being used, but I think they're being used in an honest way that isn't sort of trying to dress something up for what it's not.
So gold leaf ceilings.
Yeah.
Only in one room.
Nah, look, very basic palette, concrete, Australian hardwood, timber cladding on the outside, timber veneer joinery on the inside, lots of light, and
what heating?
Bit of an architectural tin shed is what I'm sort of referring to it as.
I like that.
Yeah.
What heating cooling?
Like Glenn Murcutt collaborating with Colorbond Steel.
Not quite cultured enough to understand that.
Yeah,
I'm sure they will.
Yeah, we'll show you later.
What HVAC?
So we're doing all electric. So no abolishing gas, which will be nice. In slab hydronic, run on heat pump, and then we've got bulkhead units in the main living and study space. So living, kitchen, dining, bulkhead units. So a bit of a combination. We're actually putting a fireplace in as well. So just a wood fireplace because I get lots of timber offcuts that I can burn. So, but that's more for just a ambient kind of thing. So, but yeah, the main heat source will be the hydronic in the slab. And by using just in slab, not a combination of like tower rails, radiators and in slab, it makes it a more simplified setup, not running the two temperatures. So yeah.
Right, because the IM slab's like 50 and then the one on the wall's like 70 or something, right?
Yeah, I think it's 60 and 70 or 50 and 60. I can't remember. But yeah, one runs a bit hotter than the other.
You seem to be hiding those few little things that, those things that you keep in secret. What are those things that you're like, right, this sort of detail really adds value to the quality of life, like, or this feature really adds value, like the floor heating, for example.
Yeah, totally. That's one that's
like one example I give is like under tile heating in bathrooms. It's not expensive.
Yeah,
but
awesome.
It adds a lot of joy.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Yeah, my wife is very sensory sort of a person as well. So she enjoys anything that maximizes comfort. But yeah, the electric underfloor heating is a really good one in bathrooms. And yeah, I don't know. just a nice, nice big skylight, always good. Also connection to the landscape is something that we're pretty into, like gardening and native plants and stuff like that, and just kind of connecting the inside to the outside and being able to sort of, look out into the backyard, into the gum trees and whatnot.
One of the moments where I appreciate the work of architects and designers the most is when I'm trying to design something for myself or for a customer.
Yeah.
And you get into that state of mental fatigue and you're like, oh my gosh, there's so many decisions to make.
Yeah.
There's so many things that I failed to consider.
Yeah.
Maybe I need to be nicer.
Yeah. Oh, look, I've got a lot of respect for architects, and, it's, it's a hard job, and I think good ones are worth their weight in gold. Absolutely.
Did you feel that, or was designing your place a breeze, making design decisions?
It was pretty easy. Yeah. I pretty much sketched the floor plan, sitting down at Christmas a few years ago, sketched the floor plan and kind of gave it to my sister-in-law and said, if anything's, seriously wrong with this, let me know. And I do really appreciate your input. Please make changes. And they came back with, a few changes, but not many. And I was like, oh shit. I was like, no, this is good. So yeah, it was a little bit of a leap of faith, but no, it has been pretty easy. And as I say, like the process of actually during the build, figuring stuff out on site, it works well.
Can you educate me on this whole situation with the gas and abolishing gas and all that?
Yep.
Can you educate me a bit? I don't know what that's all about.
Yep. Well, yeah, I mean, it's kind of timely, I suppose, with the Victorian government having just made that announcement about, 2024, no new homes will have gas. So, yeah, I mean, it's about, again, sustainability. Fracking for gas is, causes damage to the natural environment. And, yeah, I think you can have we've got very viable alternatives available to us in, electric options. So yeah, it was a no-brainer for me, basically. And it's a hard one to swallow for some of the older contractors and stuff that have been, gas fitting and doing gas fireplaces or hot water services and all that sort of stuff. It's like, you need to kind of pivot. But yeah, I think it's a finite resource, and we've got, a lot of ability to generate good solar power in Australia. If you can get yourself into a position where you're running an all-electric home, you've got a reasonable solar setup, you're utilising appliances and utilities at times that are, economical for your system, then you can get into a situation where you're minimal emissions and you're saving, a huge amount of money, generating a lot of your own power, and with no real damage, no real footprint to the earth. So
are you in support of the ban itself?
Yeah. I think it's a good thing. Yeah, it's a pretty bold move. To be honest, I'm kind of surprised that they did. But
any case studies? Has anyone else done it around the world?
I'm not too sure. I don't know. Yeah, but I know that, a shift away from any sort of fossil fuel based energy is pretty crucial, really, if we're to try and turn around, the damage that's been done over the last few hundred years. So, yeah, I support it. I think it's good. We're trying to, we do a lot of our projects are electric as well. And we're really trying to sort of push that with clients. I think some people just have a bit of a natural hesitation. They know what they know, or they love, they love what they know, and they're familiar with, gas cooker and that sort of thing. But I mean, anyone that uses induction loves it because it's more precise, it's more controlled, it's,
So is it going to be, how many amps do your three-phase connections get? Most of your builds, 60 or?
No, don't know. Got nothing for you there, Charlie. I'm not sure.
Because like a big aircon, let's say that draws 20, and then your induction draws
3-phase is definitely recommended. I think if you're going we're doing 3-phase. We do it's pretty common on our projects that we're doing 3-phase, and I think that's a good future proofing as well, because things like electric vehicle chargers and obviously if you are going all electric, you're starting to draw a pretty big load. So yeah. But no, it's interesting stuff. I mean, we've got such good resources here to use now that I think it's a no-brainer, and would implore anyone to look into it, do more research, and get around it.
Well, there's no choice anyways now, is there?
Not if you're building a new home after 2024. No. Yeah.
What are you looking towards in the looking at the future? What are your thoughts? So we've just got your thoughts on what's been on your mind now. What's on your mind about the future?
I mean, in a business sense, I would really love to, I've been speaking about this with a few people over the years, but, doing a D&C type model that is a little different, that sort of collaborates with, architects and builders in a true sense, and where, basically looking into that D&C model and how we can sort of potentially move into that space.
Have you fleshed out what some of those pillars are, like that will make it work?
A little bit, yeah. It's looking at the things like what we've spoken about with efficiencies through the process, whereby you don't have a 120-page set of plans and the architect, that has cost a fortune to do, and they're beautiful, but it's sort of finding a sweet spot where you can get a really accessible product for a reasonable price.
Is it almost going backwards in time toward a time where the builder just built the house?
A little bit, but it's using a builder that has, a very strong sense of design.
And awareness
and consideration.
That they can at least understand what the design intent is.
Yeah, that's right. And look, that's, that is a big part of what we do. It's I think having a deeper understanding of architectural intent allows you to create, create better outcomes, basically. Because, if you're coming from a perspective of understanding rather than interpreting, then, you...
Understanding versus interpreting.
Yeah.
I like that.
You're far better off, getting into that mindset of really understanding, the architecture of what you're creating, I think is...
That helps you deliver value to the customer, because you're saying, when you make a suggestion, for instance, you're saying, in the context of your intent, your design intent, if we make this decision, we're better off because of X, Y, Z. And it's still in alignment with your intent.
Yeah. I think, getting back to what we're saying with adding value to the process for the customer and the enjoyment and stuff like that, it's seeing opportunities that are aligned with the architectural intent or the design intent and acting on those in a purposeful way or a positive way where, there's not any other intention other than to get a better outcome for the client.
Do you think builders, or really anyone in any business, can benefit from, instead of just thinking about this is how we build this house right, this is the best way to build this house, and take it a step further and say this is how we can deliver the most value to the customer? And obviously those things are very much aligned most of the time. But do you think it's beneficial for you to be imparting that sort of thinking to your team in terms of when you're making a decision? Yes, it's how do we build this house better, but...
Yeah, for sure. I think,
or does it complicate it?
It can complement. So you're saying to seize value or to sort of add...
or to give the customer as much value as much value as possible. Better.
Well, I guess value,
faster, cheaper, more aligned with your social mission. More sustainable. For sure. Like whatever their value structure is.
I think it's a delicate balance. But I would always encourage, all of our team to have a say in that. If there is an opportunity to add value in any one of those areas you're talking about, certainly I want to hear your opinion or hear your ideas about it. So, obviously there's a fine line though. You don't want, the apprentice coming out at a site meeting being like, I've got a great idea. I think we need to change this and do that.
Well,
and whatever.
he needs to understand that him coming forward with that idea in that situation may not be delivering more value to the customer because it may be eroding away the customer's trust in the process. For instance.
Yeah.
So again, that's a misalignment.
Yeah. 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 I think there's a delicate balance there to be struck. But if it's done well, I think it can be really beneficial. And it also gets the team thinking about stuff like that, which is good for their, learning, and it's good for them to be thinking in that way, not just rocking up and banging timber into, nails into timber. It's like, okay, well, let's think about the bigger picture and what comes next. And I think that's a big part of, seeing growth in your team is getting them to think about the whole process, not just what they're doing in the moment. And that's a part of it, I reckon, for sure.
Do you ever speak to your team in the context of, right, guys, to a large extent, we're here to maximize profits?
Not really, no.
Why not?
Well, I mean...
Is it counterproductive?
I think there's, if given some option, obviously we'll prefer to go with something that's going to be more economical. Like if it's down to supplier A versus supplier B and we can get something cheaper, of course. But no, I mean, yeah, it's all about, delivering a good outcome, getting it right, basically. And that's something, we tell our apprentices very early on. I don't care if it takes twice the amount of time, just get it right. Because, it's going to take longer to fix it, get it done and fix the whole thing again. It's also much better if you're learning to learn the proper way. And then, the next time you do it, you might be 5% faster. The next time you do it, you might be 10% faster, and so on and so forth.
How do you try to reduce friction in your team? Obviously, that's one way, is saying get it right, make a concession on the time, but get it right.
Well, getting back to what I said with the meetings and stuff like that, if we're talking about meeting 3 times a week, then a lot of the carpentry works we do take 5, 6, 7, 10 days, 2 weeks, 3 weeks. So you're sort of catching those things before they happen. And I think a big part of when problems happen is when, something big is done incorrectly, but you never had the opportunity to actually check in on it, until it was done. So whereas if we're sitting down having a meeting, we're going, all right, boys, guys, what's the plan for today? We're going to build this northern wall. Cool. What's the process? Hey, what are you going to do? What's the first step? Well, we've got to work out the height of the wall. Oh yeah. How do you do that? What's the height?
How do you teach your managers how to manage?
How do I teach my managers how to manage? I think it's instilling confidence in their ability.
Mate, you're in this position because you are right for the job, and you're going to kill it, and you're going to do it. Taking
time when they need it to sort of step away from the situation to make sure that their mindset is correct and, you're feeling calm and relaxed. I think a big part of it when, they're starting out is that, there's obviously many issues, but some, we've had a lot of times where people feel like they're not quite respected. If you've got someone who's, 32 telling someone who's 52 how they need to be doing something, sometimes that doesn't go down so well. But, assertive communication is a big one that I've spoken about a lot, and how you can sort of clearly articulate your needs and get the outcome that you're after.
How do you manage the ego of that 52-year-old individual?
It can be a challenge, but I think at the end of the day, it's not about...
How do you make them feel safe?
Yeah, it's not about an emotional transaction, I think, when it's, when you're at work and it's a business.
So you're saying it's a meritocracy?
Meritocracy. That's a good word. I'll have to look that up.
That we look at the value of your work based on the merits of your work.
Yeah, for sure. It's completely irrelevant, I think, how old you are. And to be honest, it's not something that's super common, but it's definitely it's just delivering, being assertive in the way that you want to communicate what you need. And I think it starts from that very first, engagement, and knowing that, okay, this guy, this is what they need. This is how we're going to deliver it. We don't have too many issues, but it can be.
There's always issues. I mean, in families there are issues.
Of course,
it's a normal thing.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
It can be incredibly hard to manage though.
Yeah. For sure. I mean, there's never been a situation where it's like crisis point, this guy's just really not going to do it the way that we want to do it, because I think that comes back to your contractor selection, and, over the years you sort of weed out the bad ones, and, that's why it's critical to sort of have same project team. We try and have the same contractors on pretty much every single job, and that just allows it to be
efficient,
a pretty efficient, consistent outcomes, understanding of the intent,
breaks down
and
barriers,
respect as well, like
trust breaks down barriers.
Yeah,
it just lubricates the whole process.
Yeah, for sure. But it takes a long time to get to that point where you can kind of go through projects and you go, oh yeah, that went pretty smooth. There's always going to be, little things to iron out. But as I said, it's more of a really consistent approach with the communication, early and often. It's like a good one that I like to say, is just, communicating early and often and making sure that everyone understands, what's going on.
What's your read on the labour market at the moment?
Definitely supply is back a bit more. I've had a few applications come in for jobs to me. And I think with, some of those big builders going broke and stuff, there's definitely a few more contractors looking for work. So, and obviously COVID, is well and truly done and dusted, and the travel numbers are back up and whatnot. So I think it's looking, a lot more optimistic. But I guess staff retention, is another thing too. If you're only concerned with labour if you don't have enough. And I mean, obviously if you want to expand, that's different. But I think keeping staff is something that's also...
But isn't the naturally the supply and demand dynamics of the labour market influences the psyche and the attitude of your staff as well, to some degree? No one's immune to it.
No, I don't. I think it would play into it, but I think what's most important is job satisfaction where they are, and trying to put in front of those guys.
How do you make them feel satisfied, fulfilled, happy, safe, challenged, growing?
I think it's giving everyone ownership over all of the work, from our apprentices right up to our most experienced people, is giving people that same level of ownership in what they're doing. And it's not, trying to eliminate that really hierarchical sort of system. And it's obviously certain people are going to be in charge of others, but it's giving everyone the opportunity to...
How do you balance between this idea of, right, just leave them alone and let them do their job, and running the 3 weekly or the 2 weekly very specific meetings on every site? And how are you worried that by going through every process in such a detailed way that they lose agency? Whereas if you say, just build this house, and obviously there's a balance. It's not a black and white thing. But do you think about having them hold themselves accountable is very important, and they do that through having agency through their work?
I think they can still, those two things can still coexist though. And I think, they can still, they're the ones that are driving that conversation. So by them being more assertive and confident in telling me what they're going to be doing, that's them having agency. It's like, well, I mean, I'm not popping into site every day. Most of these meetings are on Zoom, by the way. So, it kind of, it's the benefit, or the purpose, I should say, of those is to actually give everyone more of an opportunity to input on how the business is run and how we're actually doing things together. So it's actually about it's giving them more agency. I mean, I know what you mean, just hands off the wheel, let them do their thing. But that's dangerous. From experience, that doesn't work.
I think that's dangerous.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, 100%. But there is a balance, I guess. Yeah, you don't want to be seen to be micromanaging every detail. That's not what it's about. It's more about giving them the opportunity to just discuss, how we're going to do things.
So it's about creating opportunities to take a considered approach in how you do everything.
Pretty much, yeah. And I think especially for apprentices that are learning, it's so important to be involved in those conversations rather than just being like, oh, look, you go sweep over here. I'm going to talk to the site supervisor about, this thing that we're doing, which is really important. Meanwhile, that guy's sweeping over there in the corner and he's sort of overhearing the conversation, wishing that he was a part of it. But he's not, because, they don't have the time to kind of include him in it. But I think you're missing value when you're doing that. And I think giving everyone the opportunity to think about it and participate in that conversation is how you get a better business, really, how you grow and get your staff from, point A to point B and just continue to sort of get better.
Because the danger of working in an environment where you're just knocking up frames every day, for example, like at that retirement village where you do 40 one after the other. Yeah. You get really good at framing at that individual task. But perhaps more important than that is the ability to learn, is the ability to think, to problem solve, and to understand the concepts and to understand how to solve a problem.
Yeah, exactly.
I guess the motor skills of putting a frame together is very important. But I think including apprentices in those discussions is an absolute must.
Yeah. Yeah.
That is, I believe you're doing them a great disservice if you're not. Yeah. If you're not imparting onto them how to think about problems, how to solve problems.
Yeah, for sure.
And
that's why it's complex, because there's a lot of value in, doing the volume stuff over and over and over again, but they're also missing out on a lot doing that as well. So trying to strike a balance between all of that stuff, where you've got people that have done volume stuff that can kind of guide you and talk about at least the method of doing it, I think is really beneficial. So, and just, a big part of it is their learning and just trying to get, even for guys that are qualified, but more so for apprentices where they're kind of coming out the other end of an apprenticeship, you want them to have as well-rounded knowledge as possible. And, I take pride in that too. They've worked for us for 3-4 years. We want them to come out the other side being a really good tradesperson. And so it's about how can we...
For me, there's a great deal of respect, given our earlier discussions, there's a great deal of respect that I have for someone who does dedicate themselves to learning a craft. And investing in themselves, because that's what they're doing. If they're there, they're really focused and they're really applying themselves. They're investing in themselves, and that in itself is a rarity.
These days. For sure. It's a beautiful thing to see people, engaged in what they're doing and really passionate about it. But I think when you hit that sweet spot, when you've got people that are really bought into the culture and they're loving what they're doing, and it's a positive environment, it's a beautiful thing.
So you're about to become a father.
Yep.
How's that impacting how you're thinking about, I guess, the future? Who you are in the context of B.F.C, in the context of what you want to do for your child, your family, your wife, all those things.
Yeah.
How's that affecting that?
Yeah, I think, I guess one of the things is that, getting the business to where it is now, and having our first child, it is something that we had quite a bit of difficulty with, and I think if that had have changed for us earlier on, I wonder how things may be different with how the business has been able to progress to where it is now. So in that sense, I'm very grateful for, I suppose, it's been a lot of hard work, but I'm very grateful for the business in its current state and the team that I have, because they are quite autonomous and they don't need me to, I can take my hands off the wheel for a week or two and they know exactly what to do. So it's nice having that reassurance and confidence in them, knowing that, obviously when baby comes, there's going to be, routines will be thrown out the window. And I am, as you probably can tell, I'm pretty, routine based and like a set sort of routine. Obviously that's going to go out the window. So I think having the knowledge that, that's going to be okay and that business can continue to, do its thing, and I can, put a little more time into family and is a nice thing. So yeah, I think just getting it to where it is now sort of allowed me to go, okay, cool, I can, do this with some success and not have to stress too much about, the business. So
has it changed how you're approaching your work, or has it changed your motivation levels?
No, not really. No, I think, getting the house done at home, obviously is pretty closely linked with a baby coming.
So you're motivated to get the house done.
100%. Yeah, for sure. We've got a very hard deadline. But, in terms of business, no, nothing at all really. I think it's business as usual. But that would be the one observation that, I suppose I've made is just the kind of, how things would have been if maybe it happened several years ago, would I've been able to get it to where it is now, and how things might have been different. So
are you saying that in the past few years am I reading that there's been a lot of sacrifice? Or a lot of hard work in some
A lot of hard work, but it's absolutely. Yeah. No, a lot of hard work. I've pushed pretty hard to get to where I am. But the thing is, it's also that I'm deeply passionate about, what I do. So I get a lot of enjoyment from it as well. So it doesn't come without reward. And it's not luck, that I'm here and doing the things that we're doing now. It's a lot of hard work, but the beauty of it all is that I love doing it. So it's sort of been a difficult journey, but one that, I've had a lot of satisfaction, got a lot of satisfaction in.
And so on a day-to-day basis, how are you spending your time now? Where is your focus?
Yeah, well, I mean, I'm predominantly office based. I'm project managing, I'm estimating, and then, I mean, the sort of...
Who deals with the customer? Who deals with the front end?
Clients and architects. I do predominantly, yeah. So, I'm still very much sort of client facing, and our project manager for the projects that he's looking after, he'll, liaise with architects directly with most of the queries. Any contract related sort of stuff generally comes, to me. But yeah, no, look, I'm generally in the office most days, just doing all of the above. So, yeah.
I want to thank you for coming. It's a long trip. Where did you come from? You came from Clayton.
Well, yeah, I came from Footscray, but I dropped in.
I was the second stop today.
Yeah, shout out Blue Chip Marble and Granite.
Shout out Blue Chip Marble and Granite.
Big ups.
No, thank you very much for coming.
No, thanks for having me, Charlie. It's been really nice to have a chat.
When did you listen? When did you first listen to the podcast? Was it a couple of years ago when I first started, or was
I think
it recently?
It would have been a couple of years ago.
Yeah.
I don't know how I stumbled on it, but I think just putting these sorts of discussions into light was really exciting for me. And I guess, looking at how other builders do things is always really interesting. Sometimes it informs how to do it and how not to do it as well. But I think in this sort of medium, I found it really interesting and really cool. So I can't remember what the first one was. But you've also, I mean, Kaya I'm pretty friendly with, and Bev and Adrian pretty friendly with, and Oscar as well. Yeah. So yeah, a few of those guys I'm pretty
That's like a little gang, aren't they? Aren't you guys?
Yeah, well, we do. There is a little group of us, like a semi-official group of builders that sort of catch up and talk shop and, you know, bounce ideas off one another that a few of those guys are a part of. But Kaya I actually met a few years ago. We did a pretty cool project in the city together as a part of Melbourne Design Week. I don't know if you've seen that online or anything, but it was the John Wardle design kind of rooftop solar pavilion with Finding Infinity. So yeah, we met then, and he's a lovely dude. But
yeah. Well, thank you very much for coming. What who should get in touch with B.F.C?
Who should get in touch with us? We're always open to collaborations with like-minded people. Is one of the little, you know, bits of literature, but who should get in touch? Just good people wanting to do good things, really. Simple as that. But also don't get in touch with us until February 24.
Is that when's the baby coming then?
November, mid-November. So, yeah.
Again, that really brings a smile to my heart. So
that's
congratulations.
Awesome, man. No, thank you, mate.
What an amazing blessing, and what a great way to finish.
Yeah.
Thank you for coming.
Thanks, man. Appreciate it.
Site to studio.
Cheers, brother.
Thank you.